CISO series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
FBI email system reportedly hacked. Is poor coding to blame? Cloudflare stops giant DDoS attack, and leaked Robinhood customer data now up for sale. I'm Sean Kelly, filling in for Rich Straffolino this week, and these are some of the stories my colleagues and I have been bringing you this week on cybersecurity headlines. And now we get a chance for some insight, opinion, and expertise on these stories from our guest, Richard Rushing, CISO of Motorola Mobility. Richard, thanks for joining us and spending some time going through these stories today.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the invitation and everything else. We're really looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you. Our sponsor for today is Vulcan Cyber. We'll hear a little bit more from them later in the show. And just a reminder, you can join us on LinkedIn Live by going to CISOseries.com and to the Week in Review page to find the link. We've got just 20 minutes, so let's get right into it. So our first story is FBI email system reportedly hacked to send fake DHS cyber attack messages. Poor coding may be to blame. The hack happened on Saturday morning amid several reports of messages sent from the agency's email infrastructure purporting to be a warning from the DHS about a cyber attack. The person claiming responsibility says they were able to send the messages by abusing insecure code in an FBI portal called Leap. A one-time password that was supposed to be sent by email was also embedded into the HTML of the page. So this is coming on the heels of a story out of Missouri that involved data hidden in HTML code as well. As seems to be more and more prevalent. What can be done to prevent it? And also, should we expect more from an agency that's really there to prevent cyber events and help cyber victims?
I think it's one of the things people make mistakes. It's all error is human, and I think that's one of the big things that's there is that humans write the code, and we do a good job sometimes, but we do a bad job most of the time. And I think that's one of the key issues that's there. But it's also around prioritization. Is hey, this is exposed to the internet. You know that the internet is a dangerous place for things and not getting safer in any time soon. So I think from that perspective, yes, they should have known better. They should have looked for this. And my guess is, hey, that they should have found it one way or another. And there's multiple ways to have things on that side, from bug bounty programs to pen testing services done continuously and things around that nature. And I think it's just something that got overlooked. It's like it's email, it just goes. So what's the big deal about it? We have all this other stuff. And it doesn't matter. The simple attacks are always the most entertaining, but also the ones that usually strike and grab you on those sides of it that's there.
Great. And one of the questions came in the chat. Why is the data hidden in the HTML code to begin with?
It's just bad coding practice. I think from the aspect of it, people go into that level, and it's a lot of times around the dev environments and things around that nature. Is people just assume that, and it's really common for like e-commerce platforms where I have my name, address, and everything else. Same thing goes for any of this. I have all this information there. And I need to send it. Maybe I send everything to you and you just pull out what's important, but I still send it to you. So a lot of the stuff is hidden in those codes. We see it with keys. You see it every now and then on some of the repositories where it's like, hey, we found hard coded keys, hard coded items. You can go back many weeks and everything else. And almost every week there is like, hey, we have these keys. And guess what? They were hard coded somewhere. Now we have to change them again. And I think that's one of the key areas is just uh, either through a debug process or something else that did not get removed, or that was the way the app was designed and they assumed no one was going to look.
Okay. On to the next story. Surveillance firm pays $1 million fine after spy van scandal. The Office of the Commissioner for Personal Data Protection in Cyprus has collected a $1 million fine from intelligence company Spear for gathering mobile data from people arriving at the airport in Larnaca. In 2019, a Chevrolet van packed with at least $3.5 million worth of equipment that could hack Android smartphones and steal data, including WhatsApp and Signal messages, was stationed near the airport. The van had been there for months when politicians in Cyprus criticized the government after seeing its capabilities in action close to the airport in a video from Forbes. So Richard, War driving is back, and it
Yeah,
seems to be new and improved. Do you get excited when you see an old classic attack making a
I
comeback?
yeah, it's old classic, and I did plenty of ward walks and ward drives, and articles and everything else. I don't think I would do that in this day and age, but there's a lot of stuff that's there, and it's one of the things is that it's two sides of the equation. One, we just assume that devices, when they connect, are doing it in a secure manner. The problem is that you can only provide so much security because there is no physical connection. I can't I don't have a laser or a piece of string that goes from my device to the cell tower, and I know it's connected to the real cell tower. And those are things that will continue to be a problem regardless of 4G, 5G kind of scenarios. It is just that realm. And then on government side and everything else, it's like it's a good question of what are you looking for, and it's kind of the same thing of how far and how wide do you need to cast a net to catch one fish on that side of it. And I think that's a struggle that many governments around the world are trying to deal with of hey, we want to protect force things. I'm looking for a particular number of phones, but the only way to do it is I got to look at every single phone, which doesn't make sense in some of those cases. So I think you really have to have some of the other things on that side of it that's there that you really have to kind of pull together and understand on that side of it. So it's not a simple problem to solve. But at the same time, you're going to get more and more places caught over and over and over again with either buying equipment, everything else. You saw a couple of weeks ago where export restrictions were put on software, export restrictions were put on stuff, trying to kind of wrap some controls around those scenarios. And some of the software providers were put on do not buy list on those sides of it that's there because of that exact reason. So it, people are trying to solve the problem. It's going to be a long time before it actually solved.
And I don't know what's going on in Cyprus, but a van sitting outside the airport, the same van for months, and not being noticed is somewhat concerning as
Yeah,
well.
I want to see the logo on the side of it. Was it just a plain white panel FBI looking van, or is it something that's not so much on that side of it? Was it something smaller, or what was it? I think that was one of the other sides of it that's there.
Yep, I agree. I would like to see that van as well. So on to our next story. DHS launches program to close cyber talent gap. The cyber talent management system was announced by the Department of Homeland Security, designed to help CISA better fill vacancies. Under the program, DHS can hire cyber professionals, with salaries up to near $332,000 in certain circumstances to better compete with the private sector. While vacancies at CISA are the initial focus, the program will eventually be used to fill gaps at other DHS agencies next year. So Richard, it seems like DHS at least is acknowledging deficiencies in its own recruiting process and in an attempt to attract top cybersecurity talent. I mean, what's your perspective on what they're doing? I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, but that $332,000 seems pretty good, pretty
Yeah, sounds
competitive.
even
So,
good for a CISO on that
right.
side of it that's there. No, I think it's one of the things, and I think it's needed. We're desperately needed in the private sector, desperately needed in the public sector. And if there is not a good balance of trade, or hey, government is great, I can get pensions, I can get other stuff that's there, but guess what? I'm taking a big pay cut every time I do it. You're just going to have a brain flow to go into the private sector. So the people that are trained in intelligence and information gathering and things like that are just going to leave and go work someplace else. And I think this at least allows people to stay and be in the mission and fully support the mission and those sides of it that's there. I think it's also one of the classics that as you started seeing CISA from a directive organization from the White House be tasked with certain functions, it's just like being tasked in the private sector. Hey, can you go do this for that? And your first reaction, I need money and people on that side of it because I'm already short staffed and barely keeping my head above water. How am I going to do extra work? So all those things that are coming in from the vulnerability management and remediation program, incident response stuff, all have to be staffed and appropriate on that side. It's hard. You need people. And unless you have people, you're not going to do it. And if you can't get the people, probably salary has a lot to do with it. It's not that they're not, you can't find the experience on that side of it, especially in the Beltway.
It's sort of a recurring thing that keeps coming up recently, I would say, with that people are an important piece of the equation, not just tech, and it's good to see more focus being put on it. I would think.
No, I totally agree on that. I have 3 levers that I can always use is people, process, and technologies. And if you limit 2 of those levers, guess what? I'm now saying don't do this. And okay, that's it. Here's my notice. Patch your vulnerabilities. We've seen how well that actually works. So just telling you to patch your vulnerabilities, everybody follows that.
Right. Okay, on to the next story. Cloudflare stops a giant DDoS attack. The company said it blocked the attack, which peaked at just under 2 terabytes per second, one of the largest DDoS attacks ever recorded. The attack came from 15,000 bots running a variant of the original Mirai code on exploited IoT devices, as well as unpatched instances from GitLab. Cloudflare said it was the largest attack it's seen and comes close to the 2.4 terabytes DDoS attack on Microsoft Azure customer in Europe last month. So, I mean, these are pretty huge, attacks with enormous speed. So what's your view? I mean, it seems like a good news story on the surface. Successfully blocking it, but if we're getting more prevalent here with the DDoS and more sophisticated, what's your take on what that means for the future?
It's one of the things. It's like DDoS has been around forever. We thought we kind of got rid of it, and then it came back, and it's got stronger and stronger. Botnets are thriving in this area, and it's pennies on the dollar that I can launch a DDoS attack against someone. And I think it's just also parts of staging. It's like, hey, guess what? We're coming up to holiday seasons and other things. Nothing better to take down an e-commerce than a well-placed DDoS attack on that side of it that's there. And yeah, groups like Cloudflare stepping up and going, yeah, we're going to protect it. Microsoft, Google, all the big providers can do it. But how does that affect the rest of the organizations that may not be in those environments that are there? We live from work from home. So the world of all these VPN concentrators and things, hey, there's 6 places to come into an organization. Oh, well, that's easy enough to eliminate all 6 of those. And at the 2.4 or even 1 terabyte of data, you're melting things along the way. So it's not about things that are failing. It's now kind of the recovery aspect. How it's not only, hey, can we withstand these attacks, but can you flip it around and can you recover from those attacks? What's it going to entail? And I think those are things that are often unanswered for a good portion of the organizations globally.
Great. I should mention somebody in the chat put "Flowers" by Irene potentially as being on the side of the war driving van.
I
That
like
we
that. I
that
like
we
that. I like that. I would say that or liquor delivery or something else that's there. You could put
insert
spy
meme.
van and no one
Yeah.
would pay attention to it at that point in time.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, now let's spend a few moments with our sponsor, Vulcan Cyber, and the fact that CISA felt the need to release the massive known exploited vulnerabilities catalog recently says everything we need to know about the state of our collective cyber debt. Attend the Vulcan Cyber Virtual Summit on December 9th and learn how your peers are working to take on cyber risk and mitigate known vulnerabilities at scale. Go to vulcan.io and click on the button at the top of the screen to register for the event. All right, let's hop right back into our next story. Emotet Botnet makes a comeback with help from TrickBot. The notorious Emotet Botnet has made a comeback nearly 10 months after a coordinated law enforcement operation dismantled its command and control infrastructure. According to researcher Luca Ebic, the malware is being leveraged as an entry point to distribute a new version of Emotet, which takes the shape of a DLL file. Europol dubbed Emotet the world's most dangerous malware because of its use by threat actors as a precursor to many critical data theft and ransomware attacks. The first deployment was detected this past Sunday, and 9 Emotet command and control servers are currently online. So, Richard, Emotet, is it a true supervillain? Should we expect more of these, variants of infamous malware coming back from the dead?
Yeah, it's always been a definite issue. This is why law enforcement stepped in and was trying to take it down globally. And again, it's one of the things of like part of the thing, you can dismantle the technology or the infrastructure behind it unless you go and dismantle the people and you take that dismantle word in whatever area that you want to go with, you're still going to have them come back. We see it with ransomware gangs. We see it with that. The criminal activity element, there's money to be made. So, you know what? Everyone is going to jump. And unlike this, the ransomware folks kind of rebrand themselves. Maybe Emotet should rebrand itself, and then maybe you wouldn't get into the limelight on that side of it so fast. Is we'll call it something else like zombieware or something else because it really rose up from the dead on that side of it. That's there. But again, the same thing as botnets and bot herders. That's their job is to get large scale botnets, and they surprise people. And what I mean by that, a lot of times botnets come up and they're like, "Hey, guess what? There is a million devices that are part of this botnet, and we've never seen it before." And it's like you don't get a million devices in a day. It's something that streams over time, and I think that's one of the characteristics of this. Is this? It's really, really hard because I would have to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities, people don't click on things, and everything else to stop it. And that's super hard to be able to do. So you can go after the infrastructure, but the infrastructure just rebuilds itself and comes back again. So it is the gift that keeps on giving. Welcome to Christmas time.
Yeah, it seems like we're finding ourselves putting the cork back into the champagne bottle more and more with the ransomware gangs and different variants of malware coming back to life. So let's move on to our next story. Leaked Robinhood customer data now up for sale. Following up on a story we brought to you last week, approximately 7 million people's data, Robinhood customers, was stolen in a data breach that began by social engineering a customer service rep, and it's now being sold by the hacker for at least $10,000. 2 days after Robinhood disclosed the attack, and after a failed extortion attempt, a threat actor named Pom Pom Purin announced on a hacking forum that they were selling the data, including email addresses and full names of millions of customers and more extensive details for a small subset of individuals. Pom Pom Purin is the same threat actor responsible for abusing FBI email servers to send threatening emails over the weekend that we just talked about earlier in the show. So, who is this Pom Pom Purin person, Richard? Do you have a good reveal for us? And is
Yeah.
this something we should be more concerned about?
He's really busy, it appears, on that side of it that's there, running around the internet, doing things and everything else that's there. If you look at it and say, okay, what's happening, where's going, and what's there, it's like you look at the two exploits, they're both US. So you can kind of say, well, maybe they're in the US environment that's there, or maybe it's someone that does not like the US and does not like capitalism. So going after it. There's so many different classifications. Attribution's hard, but you can go back and look at it, and it says person's got skills. I took care of an application vulnerability. Oh yeah, now I socially engineered somebody. Different skill sets or very different skill sets that usually don't follow one person around. So it's one of those things that, yeah, they're there. And yeah, the data that's leaked is part of the things that, hey, now this feeds phishing emails, this feeds other information. It's one of those things that data breaches happen and that information gets leveraged and used by multiple actors across the board to do nefarious things. And that's part of the luxury or not luxury that we live in today is that all it takes is one of your entities that you're out anywhere and now you're getting spam, you're getting phishing emails all around the thing.
Yeah, it's interesting that you highlighted, HTML is more technical. The HTML hack was a little bit more technical, and then they, switched to social engineering for this one, and then converted to more technical. So it seems to be, I don't know if it's highly sophisticated. Everyone likes to overuse that phrase, but definitely, like you said, a range of skill sets being
Yeah,
used there.
it's just the nature of like, okay, whether the skills this person is actually using. That's again, that's a lot of times why our attribution comes in, what development tools they use. But it's to the same thing that those usually don't follow the same kind of person around, but they could for a successful pen test person that does physical security testing and some of the other stuff. So who knows who this is?
All right, on to our last story of the day. Our time has gone quickly. 2021's most common passwords revealed. On Wednesday, NordPass published its annual study of password use across 50 countries, based in a database of 4 terabytes of leaked data from the US, Canada, Russia, Australia, and Europe. One of the top 10 most common passwords in 2021, 7 of them were variations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sounds like a Spaceballs password reference, with the other 3 being 111, QWERTY, and the word password. Researchers also found that a stunning number of people like to use their own name as a password. So, classic human weak link story. I mean, will the message about strengthening passwords ever really make it through?
I don't know. These are all when you see these studies, I always get scared. I'm like, I think I should just retire at this point in time because things are not changing. Because I wrote a paper in 1996 about passwords. So I'm like, yeah, deja vu again. And I think those are one of the key areas that you run into is that you constantly have this that we push things, say change, make them strong, don't synchronize them. We give you tools like password managers and things like that to use. It's built into your browser to select a strong password. But what do people do? 11111 1 2 3 4 5 6, which always scares me because I'm like, most passwords need to be at least 8 characters in most modern systems, and we have some that are 6. That's a problem on the other side. Passwords are hard to struggle with, and the thing for the world of that, any large organization that's ever said, hey, 8 character passwords are probably weak and we should kind of change that. Where do you change it to? And how do you change it? Because everybody will throw a fit on that side of it. You always hear about executives like wanting to change, have the same password and things around that. I'm like, it's not that hard. Everything does it for you today. There's no reasons for this. And I think this is one of the things that you really have to see. It should not happen. It should be something there. The applications should throw out if you type 11111 as your password. I'm going to tell you weak. We see the little weak bar. We see the other stuff. We try to coax everyone to do it, and they still take the easy way out. And I think that's part of the issue a lot around cybersecurity is there's always that easy way. And the fence is not high enough. So you need to elevate the fence, force password changes, change passwords on a regular basis. How often do those passwords force to change? Mine at work, you have a dedicated time frame where they expire and they change. None of the public facing sides usually want to change your password forever. That just tells you there's an issue with that. And I think solving that issue is like maybe we move away from passwords to something else, but we've tried that before and you never get the succession in that. I think from a company or organization on that, you should change your length. The computer power is getting stronger and stronger. And you don't have to do from 8 characters to 15 characters, just increment it by 1. Change it from 8 to 9 this year. Next year, guess what? Goes to 10. Just keep that stage ahead. You'll eventually get to where you need to, but in that short period of time, at least you have something that's there. And I think that's one of the things that this is a people problem. We've talked about that on the show a couple of times now. How do I convince somebody to do something that's different? And that's a hard thing to do. That's a super hard thing to do.
Yep, it would be fun to dust off that paper from 1996, so we take a look at that one again. So all right, well, we've reached the end of the show. Richard, are there any stories that stood out to you? Thumbs up, thumbs down, eye roll. What resonated?
Yeah, I think it's back to the same thing. I think they followed into there's still a human factor in a lot of the cybersecurity, and we're not getting rid of that anytime soon. We've discovered that attackers, even though they're killed off, it's kind of like a bad sequel. Oh, that was a dream sequence. We'll bring everybody back after that. We really didn't take down your botnet or anything else. Even the best people, FBI included, can make mistakes on that. So don't feel bad if you make a mistake. You're human, and no one should go after people for making mistakes on that. If you continue to make mistakes, that's when people go. But just making a mistake that's there, and fess up to the mistakes, admit it. And then you found out that yes, governments like to figure out cell phones and technologies and things that are around that for whatever reasons. And some of them are nefarious, some of them are valid, some of them are that. You don't know. But again, trying to figure out everything from casting wide nets, you don't get the visibility or the data or anything else that's going to be valuable at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the cases that's going to fall in. I'm not like you didn't know who was coming in on the planes that you wanted to get information from or anything else. You already know those pieces of data. You just want that little extra. Don't get the extra.
Great. Great. And Richard, where can people find you if they're so inclined on the interwebs? And is there anything you'd like to plug? Are you
Sure.
hiring anything
Yeah.
else?
I have a LinkedIn profile, Richard Rushing, that's there. I'm on Twitter at SecRich. I do kind of religiously post articles and comments and long diatribes of problems on that side of it. And yes, hiring is always one of the key things. You can never find enough people and things around that. And not only is it from organizations as yourself, is hey, CISOs and other folks are all friends with other ones. There is great networking potential of trying to find places and people and things around that nature. And I think that's something that everyone should practice. If you don't like what you're doing, or you want to do something else, or want to try something else, hey, cybersecurity is a world of opportunity in there.
Great. Big thank you to Richard Rushing, CISO of Motorola Mobility. Also, thank you to our sponsor today, Vulcan Cyber. And as a reminder, there will be no Week in Review next Friday due to Thanksgiving, nor will there be a Friday video chat, but both shows will be back on December 3rd. And the video chat topic will be hacking cyber risk quantification, an hour of critical thinking about how to measure your company's exposure. And remember, if you want to get caught up on the cybersecurity stories, you can download CSH every day on your podcast of choice, or go to CISOseries.com. Until then, I'm Sean Kelly, reminding you to have a great weekend and an awesome Thanksgiving.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.